If you've ever Googled 3D printing for beginners and then immediately closed the tab because it looked absolutely terrifying, yeah, this video is literally for you. Now I'm going to be straight with you. When I first got into this hobby, I almost quit before I made a single thing. Because you go online looking for help, and within about 30 seconds, somebody's talking about pressure advance, extrusion multipliers, firmware tuning, and that's before you've even touched your printer. And I was like, I just want to make stuff. I don't want to have to get a computer science degree to do this. But here's something I figured out, and honestly, nobody on YouTube talks about this. Adults over 50 have a built-in advantage in 3D printing that most younger adults don't have. I'll tell you exactly what that is in a minute. But first, let me tell you the real reason why most people don't even start. It's not that 3D printing is actually hard, it's that the internet makes it hard. You search for beginner advice, and 30 seconds in, you're buried in extrusion multipliers, pressure advance settings, custom firmware, nozzle temperatures. It's enough to make anyone feel like you're already behind. But here's what I've learned on my own 3D printing misadventure, and trust me, it has sometimes been a misadventure. You don't need to understand any of that to get started.
And please, speak as you might to a young child or a golden retriever.
There are really only 4 things you need to understand to make your first successful 3D print. And honestly, the 4th one matters more than the other 3 combined. But before I get to those, I promised you something. That advantage older beginners have, here's what it actually is. I've watched a lot of beginners struggle with this hobby, and the ones who fail, it's almost never because they don't understand the tech, it's because they can't slow down. They try to print the most complicated thing they can find on day one, a life-size Mandalorian helmet, a dragon with 47 moving parts, or a 3-day long print. And it fails. Inevitably, it fails. And then they rage quit. Here's your advantage. Most adults over 50 have already learned things. Home repairs that didn't go right the first time. How to work with tools. How to make adjustments to your cameras. Woodworking. Cars. We already know how to learn slowly. How to try something, fail, adjust, and then try again. That is literally the entire secret to 3D printing. Now, I have to warn you about something before we get to those 4 things. There is one specific mistake I see beginners make over and over and over, and it causes more frustration than anything else. And when I first started, I made this mistake over and over and over and almost rage quit myself. The biggest mistake that beginners make, and I did this, is trying to learn everything before printing anything. We call it information overload. I spent weeks watching videos, reading forums, taking notes, and yet I was still terrified to start. But here's the thing you need to know. You only need to know enough to make your first print. Not your 50th print, not your 500th print, but just make one print. And modern printers have made this dramatically easier than it used to be. We're not talking about the early days, how frustrating it can be to build it out of a box containing a bunch of parts with only a Chinese pictogram for instruction. Then you get into auto bed leveling, touch screens, preloaded profiles, but the machine does most of the heavy lifting now. But this brings up the question I get asked most often by friends, co-workers, family who are curious about this 3D printing adventure that I've embarked on. They say, okay, but what do I need to actually get started? The answer is simpler than you think. And that 4th item, you're not going to expect it. 4 things. That's it. That's all you need to 3D print. Number 1, a reliable printer. You don't need the most expensive one. You need one that works and one that has an active community around it, whether that's on YouTube, Facebook groups, Reddit, or just friends and family. That way, when you have questions, the answers already exist online. Filament, it's like the ink in a regular printer, but it's the ink for a 3D printer. Consider this. To break it down simply, a 3D printer is simply a glorified hot glue gun that instead of using a glue stick that melts and squirts out glue onto your craft, it takes a roll of plastic filament which looks like plastic thread, melts it and extrudes it out onto the print bed and creates your Flexi Dragon or ashtray or coffee filter holder. There are many types of filament by basically the different types of plastics which have different properties. There is a rainbow of colors, more than Skittles, and it's fairly cheap. Sometimes you can find the filament online for as low as 10 to 15 bucks a roll. Amazon has it. Typically you can get it delivered tomorrow and be printing to your heart's content. The third thing is a slicer program. Now don't be scared off. A slicer is a piece of software that takes a 3D printable object and breaks it down into layers, kind of like a layered cake. No matter what you're printing, I thought I had some examples. I do. This is something that I designed in Tinkercad, which you don't have to be a CAD designer, but you can learn how to design your own products. This goes into the end of a transmission and protects the shaft from damage during storage. I don't know if the camera can pick it up. Where are we? Right there. So right in there you can see the layer lines, those little lines. So this thing was a solid, let's call it a thimble looking thing on Tinkercad, and when I put it in the slicer, broke it down in each layer so the printer can lay down the filament, build it up, and this was the final result. Number 4, the thing that matters, the absolute must. You've got to have willingness to mess up a few prints and then not quit. Ask for help, find answers to your questions, and proceed on in this journey. A lot of times now, you can take a picture of what's going on. Maybe you've got a big wad of spaghetti on your print bed. You can take a picture of that, a picture of your slicer settings, upload that to ChatGPT, and in 20 or 30 seconds, ChatGPT can guide you in the correct direction, what changes to make to your settings. Or you can post it on a Facebook group, in Reddit, and same thing, some actual human beings can help and bring you some answers to your question. Another issue that you'll have will be things not sticking to the print bed. So if we go back to our example here of the transmission protector, when this flat piece, which was the bottom, gets printed, it gets stuck to the print bed because it's hot plastic, and you want it stuck to the print bed so that as the printer goes back and forth, it can keep laying the plastic down and building it up. What can happen, and will probably be one of your first points of failure, is that this doesn't stick to the print bed and it starts moving around or gets knocked over. And then what happens is the filament keeps coming out of the printer, but instead of sticking to the part in the correct spot, the part's either knocked over and not there anymore, or it's being drug around by the printer. And so what looks like little fine angel hair pasta comes out. And a lot of the newer machines have a camera that can detect that, and they'll shut the printer off. But if that fails, which has happened to me, or you don't have it turned on, which has happened to me, you'll end up with a big wad of angel hair pasta.
I don't think so. No, 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 no.
On your print bed and go, holy crap, what happened? But it's not that big a deal. You clean up the mess, cut the filament off, reset the printer, and then learn from the mistakes. But honestly, the best learning experiences I've had in this hobby are when something went wrong, and then I found the answers, how to prevent it, how to fix it, how to move on, how to be successful. But the real secret here, the thing that separates the beginners who stick with it from the ones who quit, is knowing what to print first. And I was one of these people. Most beginners make it way harder than it needs to be. Start small, practical, fast. Not a helmet, not a dragon with 47 moving parts. Not that 3-day print. You can get to that later. Start with something you'll actually see. A phone stand, a hook for the garage, a little cable clip. Something that will print in under an hour. Something that you can hold in your hand with pride and say, I made this. I printed a giant T-Rex skull for my 4-year-old grandson who absolutely loved it. But guess what? I think I printed it 75 to 90% completion 5 or 6 times. And we're talking huge. It was a lot of filament. It was a lot of waste. Filament's not super expensive. Don't panic. So, we're talking a couple of bucks. It wasn't the end of the world. But I asked questions, I took pictures, I gave it to ChatGPT and to Gemini, and eventually found, basically it was one setting. I didn't know any better because I was new, but I fixed that setting. But you know what? I didn't start there. No, there's no way I started there. I may have wanted to start there, but I didn't start there. And thank God, because I would have probably taken a sledgehammer to the 3D printer, thrown it out the window. I started with small things, flat squares, first layer tests, simple cubes, and the ever elusive, or I shouldn't say elusive, the one print, I guess, that is synonymous with 3D printers. If you don't know about it, you soon will. The Benchy. The Benchy is a boat. It is actually kind of a benchmark print for 3D printers. When it's been around, almost every printer just comes with it loaded on the printer. You don't have to have a flash drive. You don't have to go to your computer. It's already on it. You push a button, it prints out this little boat, looks like a little tugboat. What's hilarious is it's called a Benchy because it is a benchmark print. Of course, computer nerds, being computer nerds, thought that that was not appropriate. So at some point, somebody has made a park bench that is a benchmark, but they named it, yep, Bodie. I wish I could claim that. That's actually kind of funny, but the Bodie is a bench, the Benchy is a boat. And there, you've probably learned all you need to know about 3D printing right there. So hold on, there's more. But as I printed these simple cubes, these Benchies, these Bodies, it was nothing extravagant, but they were successful prints, and they built my confidence. Those little boring prints turned into little wins, and I stacked those little wins into the confidence to try bigger and more complicated prints. Because you know what? Once you get that first successful print in your hand, something clicks. Your mind goes, I can do this. I can learn this. I can be successful. It stops feeling like a technology that you have to master, but it feels like a tool that's comfortable in your hand, just like you would use a screwdriver or a hammer to drive a nail. And when you get to that point, you'll be like me, and you literally cannot stop talking about this thing. You go to work and talk to coworkers. Maybe they 3D print, or maybe they want to know about 3D printing. You'll give people gifts of things that you've printed on a 3D printer, which honestly, if you're like me and you've got grandkids, it turns into a toy printer. I've printed monster trucks, I've printed Elsa, and possibilities are endless. And you may be wondering, where do all these things come from? There are literally websites that are basically databases of free things you can download and print. So don't worry about being a graphic designer. Don't worry about being a CAD operator with a degree in engineering. You don't have to have AutoCAD or SolidWorks. There are literally free programs online that you can learn to design your own things. Like I learned this in one called Tinkercad, which is free. It's very easily used. So now if you've been sitting on the fence about getting a 3D printer, whether you're in your 50s, 60s, or beyond, somewhere in between, my advice is simple. Don't wait until you understand everything. Nobody does. I definitely don't. Start small, learn one thing at a time, and then let that grow and stack your small successes one after the other. In the next series of videos, I'm going to break down the whole process step by step. How to choose your first printer, understanding filament, the different types. Understanding filament, there are way more types than you think. There's way more types than I've even attempted to use or understand. The slicer basics, again, don't be terrified of this elephant in the room called the slicer. All of your printers come with a slicer that has some basic settings that are already kind of generically proven to work for that printer. So you'll just go in and do the basics. It's once you start doing more advanced prints, you'll learn what the settings do and how to change them. Then you're going to make your first prints, whether it is the Benchy or a little cube or something small, but you will start to make your first prints. And when you make that first successful print, trust me, you will be like, wow, I just made something. I didn't buy it. I didn't go on Etsy. I didn't go on eBay. I didn't dial up Amazon and get it tomorrow. I put filament in the printer and I pushed a button and this came out. Whatever this is in your case. And you will be proud and you'll be very happy. As we move forward, my two personal printers I have are made by a company called Anycubic. I have the Kobra S1 combo, which means it has multi-filament loaders. It has two of them, so it actually can print in 8 colors. And if I get out of the way over there, I have a Kobra 3 Max, which is a very big printer, but we will get into the different types of printers and which one could be appropriate for you to get started. If this all has been helpful, please hit the subscribe button and I'll see you in the next video. And If you've already jumped into 3D printing later in life, drop a comment. Tell me how it's going. I'll read and respond to every comment.